Hey, welcome to Tellis Like It Is, a chat slash a show during which we get to know the person behind the personality. I've grown up loving the performing arts, including theater. I remember reading once someone say, theater not only makes you who you are, it can also point out to you who you can be. I have with me someone today who has pretty much lived that statement. You talk about theater, musicals and otherwise. You talk about films, over 100 films to his name. You talk about OTT. Hey, he's been there, done it, and continues to. My dear friend and professional Dalip Tahil. Dalip, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you so much for having me here. It's absolutely a pleasure. As you know, we've known each other for like hundreds of years, and it's great to be here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction. I don't deserve most of it, but thanks anyway. I'll take it. I'll live with it.
You humble man. I love this guy just for who he is. All the talent aside, of course. Dalip, a lot of us know your professional side, right? Like I just said, your film career, your musical and theater career, your OTT career, but we're going to try and spend the next swatch of time trying to get to know you better, trying to get to know Dalip Tahil better. So I'm tempted to say, let's start at the very beginning. Tell us about the early days, where you grew up, stuff you did.
It's the thing I like about interactions like this, particularly with a person like you who I've known for such a long time, is that not just you, but I begin to understand who I am. So I mean, when I go into this, this thought process of, as I was talking to Megha, right?
Right.
I was talking to her yesterday, and I went through the process. Very interesting, because I think it really all began for me. Let me start with the school I went to, which was Sherwood College in Nainital. I believe that it really began for me there. Before that, I was kind of spluttering around the place. I was about 9 years old when I went to this boarding school. And the reason for that was partly that my parents wanted to see the back of me, to get rid of me for a while. And also for the fact that my father was in the Air Force. So they were always posted in these non-family stations. So he wanted my education to be, continuous and sort of have some stability. And my mother, being a convent girl from the days in Karachi when she was born in 1916. Today's her birthday, by the way. 1st of March. And that's why this is so special for me. She was a convent girl, and I think it was her suggestion that we go to this beautiful school called Sherwood College, which was a Protestant school and left over by the British. And the teachers were some of them were English, some of them were Indian. However, the basis, what I was trying to get to was that ever since I joined that school, I was in the choir from the age of 9. I think my father must have told the music teacher that I think he sings a little bit, because my father was a very good singer. So, I mean, I had a bit of a voice. Maybe he heard me. And I was in the choir ever since from the age of 9, when I was a treble. And I remained in the Sherwood choir, though I don't know how. I mean, I might have, the kinds of things we were doing, I almost got thrown out of the school, leave alone the choir.
You survived school?
I survived school. I'm a survivor. I mean, I managed to survive in boarding school.
We are suitably impressed, Mr.
But just about. Because I think the times my choir teacher, Mr. Thompson, saved me, I'll never forget. However, that's where it all began for me. Because when I think of anything else, I can't really put a finger on it except this. Because the choir brought me on stage. Because in school we had the nativity, which was we had an early Christmas. So I was always on stage, either playing one of the three kings or playing Gabriel or, something in the nativity. And the school performances, as you know.
That's right.
We have these school concerts and informal concert, formal concert. So I was always on stage, and I never thought too much about it. This is one of the things you did in the choir. Also, every morning before classes began, we began with the chapel service, where the choir sang a hymn and a psalm. So gradually, my vocal training began at a very young age, without really realizing it. Because we had such a wonderful music teacher, Mr. Thompson, the vocalizing began since then. And also I was in the music class, so
Sure.
I played piano.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I did, yeah. I in fact did my theory and practicals till junior Trinity College. After that, it all went. Blame it on Bombay, So this city, takes away everything, but it gives you a lot. So that's how it began for me. And from there, I kind of then there came a very, which I call a watershed watershed point for me in my life, where I began to get, which brought me on stage. And that was this. We used to have a Founders Day in school, like we all,
Sure.
like schools have. On Founders Day, all the kids used to be involved in some discipline or the other. It was usually the PT display or this, or something associated to make the school proud. And the guys, there was to be a mountaineering expedition because our school was in the mountains. And the boys who went for that expedition left about a month and a half in advance and returned on Founders Day. And as a boy, I used to see them coming back with suntan, because you go to the mountains, the sun is very strong. So they used to have this suntan, they used to have, their hair was longer than we were allowed in school. And they looked rugged and they really looked like heroes. And they used to walk into school and just go like, wow, these are the real guys. And I was very involved in sport and all in school. So I wanted to do that when I was in class 9. I said, I want to go on the mountaineering expedition and return as a hero, So I went through the training, did all the rappels and stomach and and did all the practice and everything. And 2 nights before we used to leave on a bus from Nainital and go down to a place called Berari. And then the Sherpas and all would come and take us on the expedition to base camp. 2 days, 2 nights before we went, I got a cough and cold. And I had fever, but I hid it. I went to the infirmary and I just sort of took a few tablets and I tried my best to suppress cold and fever. It didn't go. So in fact, on the morning we were leaving at 6 o'clock in the morning, as boarding schools do. Everything happens so damn early in the morning. 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. And the movies are the same.
You obviously aren't a morning person.
But I've become a morning person because it's the same in the movies. Anyway, on the morning we all congregated downstairs and we left on the expedition. And the bus road takes us about 3.5, 4 hours to get to the base camp area, Birari, which I said in the Almora district. On the journey, I was coughing and I tried to take these lozenges. Members of staff there were a group of about 5 of us, plus members of staff who would come on the expedition. To cut a long story short, we got to the end of the bus road. Mr. Johnson and Mr. Thapa, who were our main teachers, Mr. Johnson put me aside. We had our tea and things like that. He took me aside and said, listen, you've been coughing right throughout the journey. I want to take your temperature. He took my temperature and I had 103.
Oh.
This became the turning point in my life in a way. He said, you can't continue with us because you have fever, you have a cough. If you come with us, this is the end of the expedition because somebody has to remain at base camp with you. If you come higher up, you may develop something worse.
Right.
It could get really bad. You got to go back. I broke down. I started weeping, crying, tantrum, yelled, screamed, did everything. They listened to me patiently and said, look, if you don't go back, this expedition is cancelled. We all have to go back. Finally, after many tears, they put me back in the bus, sent me back to school, and the expedition continued. I got back to school totally depressed that I had lost out on this thing. And 3 or 4 days I was in the infirmary. I got okay. Then reality hit me that every other discipline on Founders Day has been occupied. I mean, there are people doing this. I'm a misfit. I'm nowhere. I'll have to be in my school uniform. So I was really down. I mean, I went and everybody said sorry. So Mr. Luther was my English teacher in class. He asked me, he said, why are you walking around with your face hanging on your ankles? What's happened? So I told him, I said, I don't know what to do. I'm in this situation that I have nothing to do on Founders Day. And I don't worry about it. They're starting the school play. Come and read for me. So I said, wow, anything, sir. I'll hold a tree or whatever, but just anything to do on Founders Day. So he said, no, we are in the evening, we're coming down. You come and read this part for me. And I did. I didn't realize at the time that it was the lead role, one of the three. It was a play called My Three Angels. I'll never forget it. I don't know who wrote it. It was called My Three Angels, about these three convicts who escaped from jail, whatever. My role was Joseph. And I read for it. And I did the play. And I got the Best Actors Cup.
What a way to start.
I don't know how it happened. I mean, it was a comedy. And I don't know whether the audience was laughing at me or with me. But everybody seemed to enjoy it. I had a blast. Most of the time, I don't know what I was doing. But it was fun. And the next thing I knew that, they announced my name as the best actor. So I said, wow, this is cool. I mean, where did all this happen? And that actually got me on stage in school for the school plays. And the next year, I did Macbeth, which is our favorite Shakespeare play. And I played Macbeth. And I won the Actors' Cup again. So I won it twice in a row. That's when I came to Bombay. In class 10, after I'd finished Macbeth in school, my father got a job in Bombay. He was with an aviation company that had their office at Juhu Airfield. So we came to Bombay, right here to Bandra. And you didn't realize it, but I became your neighbor at that time.
Is that right?
Unsuspecting. This guy showed up. So I came to Bombay and I came to Bandra on my school holidays. In boarding school, we had 9 months school and 3-month holidays. And this was, I think, around 1968. You were very much there.
I was very much there, as much as I pretend otherwise. Dalip, I was.
I don't want to give you an age away, Brian, but you were around, and in a big way. So I came home for my school holidays. First time in Bombay, I had no idea. Came to this beautiful suburb of Bandra. It looked very different in those days, as you well know. And I thought I was in this charming paradise, which it was. Anyway, the only thing that is important for a boarding school boy when they come on their holidays is food. Nothing but food.
For a moment, I thought you were going to say something else, but food it is, yeah.
That I can't say on television.
Oh, yeah.
So
sure.
let's keep it at food. So I came home. And of course, after about a week, my mother told me that, are you going to do something more than eat? You're going to do something constructive. And apart from the fact that you're going to fall very sick because all you do is eat all day long, you're also eating us out of house and home. So get out there and do something. So I said, yeah, sure. I mean, I asked around and I just finished Macbeth and, I thought I was the bee's knees as, a great actor. And I felt that, I thought that, I'll find out maybe somebody's doing a play around and I can sort of join a group or a play. So I did. I asked around and all fingers and everyone, it was like in unison, this huge chorus and the voice that said, Alec and Pearl Padamsee. They are the ones who are the theatre people. Because it was to the English theatre that I was headed. There was Satyadev Dubey as well, who was doing Hindi theatre. But my thing was the English theatre. So I actually looked up the directory and found Alec Padamsee's number. And Jersin Dukuna, our friend, the great Jersin Dukuna, used to always joke with me. He said, you found Alec Padamsee under A. So it was a little thing. So anyway, I got Alec's number and I still remember it was in Colaba. It was a 2151 kind of number. And I called.
Kulsum Terrace.
Not Kulsum Terrace. This was Belhar Terrace.
Oh, it was Belhar.
When he was working in Lintas, he had a terrace flat on Woodhouse Road.
Yeah.
Belhar Terrace. You had to walk up many, many stairs, much like Fountainhead. I was much younger in those days, so it was like, okay. So anyhow, I called and there was Alec's famous door. In those days, people picked up the phone themselves. There was no this filter process of 20 secretaries and things like that, like you have.
No, I don't.
I'm just joking. You're very accessible. So this drawl came, hello, who's there? So I said, my name is Dalip. I've just come from Sherwood and blah, 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 blah. And I've just done a play in school and I'm very interested in the theatre. And I want to, sort of stuttered my way. He said, yeah, okay, I understand. And he then said, he called Pearl, his wife, who he used to call Pixie.
Right.
So he said, Pixie, there's this guy on the phone. And he gave the phone to Pearl, who was completely opposite. She said, hello, my darling. How are you? How lovely. You're from Sherwood. You went to school. Da, da, da. Yes, come over. I said, look, I'm at a loose end. I'm here for a 3-month holiday. And my mother's decided not to feed me. So, may I come across that? So she said, absolutely, you must come. And we're doing this play. So she said, where do you live? So I said, I live in Bandra. And she told me, no problem. There's an 84 Express that leaves from that bus station to get you all the way to Woodhouse Road. So she gave me the route as well. Next thing I knew, I was at Belha Terrace and Alec was staging the most magnificent play that I've ever been involved in. It was called Marat Saad, which has the longest title that any play that I can think of. So the actual title is, hold on, wait for this. I've got to get my breath. The Persecution and Assassination of Jean-Paul Marat as performed by the inmates of the Asylum of Charenton under the direction of the Marquis de Sade. Thank you.
And with that, the play ends.
And good one. And that's just the title of the play. In short, it's called Marat Sade. M-A-R-A-T-S-A-D-E, where sadism came from. Sade, same guy. Huge production. The who's who of English theatre were
all there
on that stage. And you will be familiar with these names, Brian, because they resonate with you. There was, of course, Alec and Pearl Padamsi. There was Jersin Dikonia. There was Kersi Katra, Shirin Hirji, Homi Daruwala, Raghu Sudan, and so many other big names in the English theatre. It was staged in the Xavier's College Hall, and it's a play within a play. So it's the people in the asylum who are actually performing for the warden of the asylum and the dignitaries and all the big wigs around. So they're all dressed, it's the French Revolution time.
Right.
So they're all dressed in this finery of French gowns, and the inmates are performing it for them. And this was in the Xavier's College Hall. Massive production, at least about 35 inmates, all of us, trying to look as mad as ever on there. And what happens in the play is that the inmates of the asylum go berserk and they attack the audience, who are the dignitaries.
So you played a key role here.
Sorry?
You played a key role in this.
No, I did. I was one of the wobbling kind of inmates there, and I was doing backstage with Pearl.
I'm tempted to ask. I digress a little bit.
Not at all.
Your dad was in the Air Force. Didn't you consider, a job in the Air Force or a role with the Air Force or the armed forces?
You've done your homework. Yes, I did. When I was in class 10, in fact, when I came back, the reason why I wasn't in very good books with my parents when I returned from the class 10 holidays was I was supposed to go to Khadakwasla to join the NDA, but I never made it. I went to Delhi and I stopped at the Odeon Cinema, and I don't know, there was a great big movie happening there. I think it was Woodstock, the Woodstock Festival, and there I stayed. I was supposed to catch the night train to Pune, but I missed that train.
The Woodstock Festival was the
movie.
The movie.
The movie of the festival. Or it was some other movie, I can't remember, but I was having such a good time at Odeon Cinema in Delhi.
What was the year?
68.
69. So that was Woodstock.
69-ish, after 68, 69.
That was Woodstock, yeah.
Could have been Woodstock. I think it was Woodstock because it was such a fantastic atmosphere. It was chilling out. There were these bands on screen and things. So I never saw that train. It went. Everybody was looking for me because I hadn't showed up at Khadakwasla. And I went back to school, so there was panic. But it all settled down. Because if I wanted to fly, I wanted to fly with the Air Force. Fly fighters like my father did.
You did fly, right?
I did a bit, little later on. Then I finished school and I came back and my father told me, he says, you want to be a pilot? So I said, yeah, it's interesting. I like flying. So he was flying then. He was Maharaja of Jamnagar's private pilot by then. So he used to take me up for cross countries and circuits and things like that. However, it's a lonely job being a pilot with your father sitting next to you. While at rehearsals, there were all these lovely actresses, including our dear friend Sharon Prabhakar.
Yes.
Because by then we had started rehearsing for Godspell, which was India's first musical.
That's right.
So there was Sharon, there was Farida Peder, there was Cheryl Rosario, there was Devika, and all these lovely girls were there at rehearsal. So, I couldn't concentrate on the flying business here.
Flying of other sorts.
Flyings of
maybe,
other
not
sorts.
Aircraft, yeah.
Next thing I knew, my father took me on a cross country from Mumbai to Ahmedabad to Jaipur to Delhi. Between Ahmedabad and Jaipur, he gave me the controls. In the Bonanza, you have these switch controls sitting next to each other. He gave me the controls and said, "You've got her," is what they say in the plane. And he started eating a sandwich. And he said, "All you have to do is keep the plane straight and level." I said, kidding me. Simplest job on it. 10, 15 minutes later, less than 10 minutes later, he took the controls and swung the plane around. So I said, "What's going on, Daddy? What's this spot?" He said, "You are going to a totally different city, somewhere in Pakistan." So, he said, when he asked me, when we stopped in Jaipur, he said, "Do you want to be a pilot?" So I said, "I want to, but, my heart's not." He said, "Clearly your heart's not." So when we went to Delhi, then fine, he said, "Fine." Then he gave me another offer after that. He said, "Are you sure?" When I turned 17, he said, "Are you sure?" He said, "You could have a career in Air India." So I said, "No." So I almost came up to PPL level.
Right.
But I never quite got my private pilot's license. So I did a bit of flying. In fact, I flew with him when he used to be the honorary instructor at Jalandhar Flying Club. I used to fly and take that Pushpak. I used to take off on the Pushpak with him when I was 13.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we used to take the plane off. I used to fly it around, but he never used to let me land.
That almost sounds illegal.
It was illegal.
It was.
It was completely illegal. But at the end of the day, when he had trained everybody, there used to be 15 minutes left. So he used to put me in the plane. There used to put 2 cushions under my bum so that I could see over the thing and boom, just take off. So, I was,
right.
in an sort of around the aviation thing.
You kind of followed your passion, if I might.
I did. Yeah. To be very honest, it was what I wanted to do. Godspell was on, and it was such a fantastic atmosphere. We were singing. I remember Rex Lobo, the pianist.
Yes.
And he was so amazing, and the whole thing was just so beautiful and fun. And I was singing in English, and there were other people singing. Godspell was such fun.
It was.
So, I was completely committed to it.
Homie was in Godspell as well, was he?
No, he wasn't. This was the first Godspell.
Ah, okay. Okay, there was the next
This
version.
one had Victor Banerjee as Jesus,
Right.
me as John the Baptist, and all these lovelies who I just mentioned.
Yeah, you just mentioned, yeah.
That when I met when I first came in touch with Vanraj Bhatia, the famous music director.
Oh, yes.
Who was so influential in my life, because in those days in the theatre, when I was in college, there was no money. And my father was an ex-retired officer, so he gave me money to buy a train pass, which I never bought, and always got caught by the TT.
I won't ask what you use that money for, because I know.
I use that money to take my girlfriend out at least once to Metro Cinema and buy her a samosa. So there was no money. So at Vanraj Bhatia, after I did this play, would give me little jingles to sing for commercials.
Yes.
And I used to earn 250 rupees. So this was like fabulous, man. I couldn't believe it.
Princely
it was too
sound.
good. Yeah, it was great. And also voiceovers, as you have done as well. In between, what happened was during Godspell, Mr. Shyam Benegal, for one of the shows, Shyam Benegal came to see the show. And after the show, he came up to me and said, in Godspell, we all had very long hair. It was 70s. Everybody had long hair. So we had long hair. It was a show about Jesus. We were all like very cool, shredded jeans and all, which people think are in fashion now, but they were then, all like torn jeans and things like that. And So Shyam came backstage and told me, if you get a haircut, I have a role for you in my new film. So I said, wow. So I went running to Pearl and I said, this is what he said. A haircut, I'll get a move. He said, darling, go. Shyam is a wonderful person. He's a great human being and he's such a talented man. You're very fortunate. Go have the haircut. So I said, what about gospel? She said, no, we're not doing shows. It's amateur theatre. So we were in a break. She said, no, we're doing shows later. Don't worry about it. The run had pretty much finished. So I had a haircut. Went home. Told my mom and dad. I said, I've got a movie. And this is all of 18 years old or 19 years old. So they said, great, you've got a movie. Fantastic. And they looked at me. I said, I'm going to Hyderabad. And I'm going to be working in a movie. So they said, okay, that sounds very good. But they both looked at me like, yes, but who is going to pay for the train fare or the whatever, however it is that you plan to get to Hyderabad? Which I thought was a fair point because, I mean, I was concerned as well. I said, it's all good. How do I get to Hyderabad? 3 or 4 days later, Brian, chap came from Shyam's office to my doorstep right here in Bandra with an envelope. And he said, Mr. Dalip Tahil? So I said, yeah. He said, this envelope has come from Shyam Benegal's film company. And you have to sign this voucher. So I signed the voucher, took the envelope. And in the envelope was a train ticket, second-class sleeper all the way to Hyderabad, and 200 rupees for my expenses in the train. Then I thought I'd made it. I said, this is it. If somebody is giving me a ticket to come to work, this is absolutely...
With 200 rupees.
With 200 rupees to have whatever I want. I went to Hyderabad. And that was my first experience of working in a film. Where once I got there, it was even better. Because Shyam Babu was one of the first directors who wanted his entire cast to be present in the city, on the set, and available no matter if you were shooting or not.
He was just phenomenal.
He was the first one to do start to finish.
Sure.
He was the first one to have this system, which was so great. He was also his sync sound came later. But he wanted everybody there. So, although I shot for only 7 days in a 35-day film, which is quite a lot.
Yeah.
But I stayed there for 35 days. And every week, first of all, my accommodation and my food was taken care of.
Right.
I shared a room. Let me give you these names now. I shared a room, a large room, with 3 of the production people. Prahlad Kakkad.
Oh, man.
Strikes again. Wonderful guy. Prahlad was Shyam's first assistant.
Oh,
and with him was Mandeep Kakkad, who later became his partner, and Ravi Upur. So these 3 production people and me used to share a room. Now, there were days when I was not shooting, plus I had an envelope full of money. So I would return from the bars at 4 o'clock in the morning in Hyderabad. And these guys, just come back from shooting and they had 3-4 hours sleep. And
you were spoiled even back then.
I was spoiled. I mean, back then, tell you.
Yeah.
And
and
the Hyderabad bar owners are the first name basis by then.
And just in case you think bar, something to do with legal, no. That's not what you're speaking about. Right?
You had to give it away. So they were leaving for work or getting up for work, and I was returning. And Prahlad used to be like, there's any time to come. So I said, listen, I've got nothing to do. It was famous, raat ko khao piyo, din mein, aaram karo. So, I mean, I developed that habit as an actor long ago. Just kidding. So anyway, so old habits kind of thing.
Just tell me, what do you believe? What do you believe it is about you that has helped you on this journey, made you who you are? What are the characteristics that you believe you have, you hold dear?
To me, I honestly, Brian, I mean, I think I may have had some of the raw talent or the raw talent, just the basics. But when I look back, when you ask me a question like that, and I look back, it's got to be, I've been so fortunate to work with such good people in the beginning of my career.
Right.
And there's nothing else I can think of, because first I got this opportunity with Shyam Benegal, who's one of the greatest directors. I worked with Pearl and Alec, who gave me
Right.
such good work. Alec went on to give me Streetcar Named Desire, Evita, and it has to be my school teacher, my music teacher in Sherwood, Mr. Thompson. They ingrained in me a certain sense of discipline, a certain sense of commitment, and taught me that whatever it is I do, you have to give it all you have and try to be the best at what you do, no matter how small it is. I have to think that that's helped me, and for that I'm just grateful, because it so happened in my life that I, in the formative years, as they say, I got such people who actually sort of showed me the path of.
One more question.
Not all.
We've spoken about early years, about how you got in touch with the arts, the opportunities, defining moments, like you said, that kind of led you to doing what you're doing and becoming who you are. I'm sure you've had time to nurse other passion points. Beyond work, what is it that really kind of puts a smile on heart?
Do you really want to know?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Great. I love this side of. It's a mixed bag, Brian. I mean, I do all sorts of things. I've always liked going out. I've always liked sport. So in my life, I've played a lot of sport, a bit of cricket, a bit of this, swimming. I've always been exercise conscious. And, just varied interests in really whatever interests me, as much to say that really nothing else, in terms of just sort of living a life of.
I can remember us having a conversation once, and you spoke about travel.
Thanks for reminding me. In my years in the movies, one of the things that I never expected, but turned out to be such a huge bonus in my life and such a gift, was the travel. I mean, because of the movies and because of this job of acting, and I've traveled to such beautiful places and such unique places. I don't think I would have ever gone there had it not been for a movie or something. And an example is, like, I went to with Shashi Kapoor, the great and the legendary leading man of Indian cinema. He did a movie called Ajuba back in the day. And that film took us to Yalta, a place on the Black Sea, the Russian, in Crimea. It's on the Black Sea. And I mean, I don't think that was a time when it was just opening up in the Soviet Union. It was still the USSR.
Right.
But perestroika and glasnost and the opening up was just beginning. So it was a very unique time to be there, because we saw the old and the new kind of evolving, and the new coming there, and almost see the growth of the opening up of the Soviet Union. But along with that, it was such a beautiful place.
Right.
And of course, we heard of the Yalta Conference in the Second World War. Yalta, literally, I'm not trying to sound like Mad Magazine, but on a clear day, you could see Istanbul. Across the Black Sea, Istanbul.
So travel was a big thing.
Travel was a big thing, and it took me to great places. And I never thought that this would happen. So that's why, for me, it came as a bonus. I said, wow, this is cool. And of course, your producers putting you up, and that continued.
It's all taken care.
That Mr. Shyam Benegal sort of laid the foundation for that. So I mean, all this is happening, and there comes a point when you think about it, you say, like, what have I done to deserve this? And when I look at myself, well, I say, pretty much nothing. But I've been fortunate to be working with such good people who have groomed me and put me on the right direction.
Great chatting, Dalip. I mean, to be able to so honestly look over your shoulder and call it like it is, it really does. It takes honesty with oneself. It takes honesty with the world around you. It takes for real people, right?
Thank you.
And it truly has been wonderful chatting with you. I'm going to ask you just a lot of people that you probably inspire, people who want to get into the world that you've lived and lived so successfully. Aside of that as well, I'd like for you to kind of give us one thought that resonates really strongly with you that you'd like to share with the world around you.
Seriously?
Yes.
It's a wonderful question. I was kind of expecting it and I tried to prepare for it, but for the life of me, I can never find one thing that I can say that will suddenly inspire everybody, because I frankly don't think that's the way it works. I, in my life, have always gone by the people I've worked with to take a leaf from their book. And talks like this are very important for me because it helps me explore my journey. So thank you for that.
Oh, welcome.
Also, if anywhere in the conversation someone has taken something that may trigger something in their lives, then I'm eternally grateful for that and thankful. But that's the way I've worked. I've found that I've got my inspirations at the most unlikely places. Maybe it's something I read, or maybe something I've seen. I know certain actors and performers who've inspired me. It's a long list. But I mean, if it has to come down to the absolute fundamentals, I find today it's the basics. I find today that, there is very little commitment to the moment and doing whatever you're doing that moment full of your ability without looking for rewards, without saying, oh, if I do this right now, boom, 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 I'm going to become this and that. That I find is very important, that you should do the work for what it's worth and the joy that it gives you for that moment. It's difficult, but without expecting rewards. And I feel that that is very difficult to do. But I feel if that can be achieved, then I think success will just follow you.
That's great.
It will just follow you.
You actually triggered off a thought, and I know you will resonate with this, around something that John Lennon said.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You want to quote it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll quote it because I think I'm close to it. John Lennon said, which is something I didn't think much of it. I mean, it was a great quote. It sounded good. I didn't think much of it at the time, but over the years, it's really resonated. I mean, John Lennon, the great John Lennon, the Beatle, said, life is what happens to you while you're planning ahead.
I think that's phenomenal.
It's phenomenal.
This is something that's really drawn me to you because I know this is one of your favorite quotes, and my God, it is one of mine as well.
Yeah, I mean, I knew you would resonate with you, and it's really what's happened in my life. Because when I think about that quote now, I say, well, that's exactly what's happened. When I'm planning, I'll do this and I'll do that tomorrow and I'll do this day after, and bang, something happens, and your life. So, as much as people say live in the moment, it's so difficult. But you have to make an effort and seek that discipline to say, let me
focus on
what is happening now. I'm now sitting with Brian. Let me think about this and this alone, and the rest will take care of itself, hopefully.
You've done a great job of just that, Dalip, and I want to say this from the heart. Thank you so much for taking time out, hanging out with us. You haven't told us all the deep and dark stories, but maybe we'll do that on the next chat.
That we can't have on television and on your show. It's too scandalous.
Okay.
Might land me in the wrong place.
But there you go. You'd be lying if you didn't say that you've got to know stuff about Dalip Tahil that you knew about earlier. And that's what Tellis Like It is all about, getting to know, like I said earlier, the person behind the personality. Thank you so much for tuning in. There's a promise that we'll bring you more such interesting stuff. But thanks for tuning in.